Hello and welcome to the presentation on human mate choice. Today we'll be looking at explanations of attractiveness in humans and what characteristics might indicate a high quality mate. So before we jump into our ultimate level explanations, some proximate and ontogenetic explanations of physical attractiveness. We're only going to be looking at physical attractiveness and more specifically facial attractiveness today. But most characteristics of attractiveness are determined culturally. So things like weight, proportions, hairstyle, skin color. This is a skin bleaching cream, very popular in the area where I was working in India. Musculature, here's changes in G.I. Joe since the 1950s, and facial hair, and all of these characteristics are determined culturally. But cross-culturally, are there any characteristics that people generally look for in attractiveness of a mate? And you might be surprised when we're looking at facial features. The three facial features that people generally find attractive tend to vary by sexual dimorphism, averageness, and symmetry. So we know sexual dimorphism is two shapes that differ between the sexes, and men's and women's faces differ in a number of ways. On average, there is of course a lot of overlap, but looking at average male and female faces, we do see differences, and this has to do with hormones such as testosterone and estrogen. So in men's faces, testosterone tends to promote bone growth, especially of the lower face, and so men tend to have longer and broader chins, and also of the brow ridges, the eyebrows above the eye, and this results in smaller and narrower eyes for men in general. Women's faces tend to have more neotenous features, and neotenous means pertaining to the juvenile form. So if you've heard stories of female castaways disguising themselves as boys, it's because female faces tend to look more like the adolescent form than males' faces, so they're more easily able to disguise themselves as juveniles. And in the case of females, estrogen tends to cap the growth of bones during puberty, which is why the faces are more neotenous. So women tend to have smaller or narrower chins, smaller, less robust eyebrow ridges, and smaller cheekbones. And they also tend to have fuller lips and larger eyes. So some researchers wanted to look cross-culturally to see if facial femininity is attractive. And they found that across many cultures, including groups with little exposure to the West, that feminine faces are rated as more attractive. And these are photos of women in the culture being rated by men of the same culture. So it's not like people are rating Western faces or something like that. So generally this smaller chin, bigger eye thing is cross-culturally found as attractive, and men across these cultures tend to prefer faces with these feminine features. Now we have to ask ourselves, why might this be attractive? What high quality might facial femininity be signaling in a mate? And when you look at a female face over the course of a life cycle, it might become more apparent because these proportions that men find attractive change as women age. And RV, which stands for reproductive value, might be correlated with facial femininity. So females with a longer reproductive career will be younger and will have facial characteristics that look more neotenous. And men's preferences may reflect adaptations to this age-limited female fertility, since female reproductive spans are cut short at menopause. Now remember, this is only the ultimate explanation and only reproductive value. It is my hope that as women age through cultures, their value in other areas might increase. So, in many cases, we often see women trying to maintain this facial femininity as they age by using Botox, collagen, and plastic surgery, but ultimately this is a very hard to fake signal, so it's actually quite a reliable cue for length of reproductive career. Alright, so men are attracted to more feminine faces. Are women attracted to more masculine faces? Masculine males tend to be viewed as more dominant. Males with more masculine features have sex at younger ages and have more sexual partners in general. But they also tend to be perceived as less warm and honest. And this is because testosterone, high levels of testosterone, have been linked to aggression and antisocial behavior. And so males with masculine features, more masculine features, tend to have higher levels of testosterone, and to an extreme can have antisocial behavior as a result. And this is generally correlated with lower levels of parental investment. So what's the trade-off here? It does appear that women are attracted to more masculine faces. More masculine faces represent higher levels of testosterone. Remember, we said testosterone is a poison and it's an immunosuppressant. Makes you do aggressive things that could cause you to get hurt. If you have high levels of testosterone and you are in good condition, it's like having a handicap that displays how good underlying genetic quality might be. So we might see women choosing mates depending on trade-offs here. In some cases, women might prefer a male partner as just a mate, and in some she might prefer a male partner to contribute to parenting effort. So they're making a mating versus parenting trade-off. So less masculine males are perceived to be more agreeable and more honest. So you can see this is the same face, morphed to be more or less masculine. The less masculine is on the left. Are preferred as long-term partners, may invest more in offspring. So one contributing factor could be that this attraction to facial masculinity could depend on the mating context. Under what context is a female choosing a mate? One context we have quite a bit of evidence for is that these preferences change across the ovulatory cycle. When most fertile, women tend to prefer faces and characteristics of more masculine men. So most fertile is immediately after ovulation. When women are most fertile, they tend to be less committed to their partners. Oops. And when they're least fertile, they tend to be most committed and prefer less masculine faces. So we can imagine females in the past who perhaps engaged in an extra-pair copulation at peak fertility could have their cake and eat it too. They could have the good genes from a partner signaling high genetic quality, and they could have the parental care and support from a male with less masculine features, and thus increase their reproductive success. Now, preferences also vary with your own reproductive value. So more attractive women tend to prefer more masculine faces. So women with self-perceived higher reproductive value or mate value tend to prefer partners with higher reproductive value. But again, there's many trade-offs here. People are balancing a lot of characteristics. Let's go forward. When looking for mates. And preferences vary with the length of relationship, how long you've been with your current partner, fertility, own mate value, and partner quality as well. Alright, so let's move on and talk about averageness. Another feature of facial attractiveness that people find attractive cross-culturally is average faces. And so these are average faces from England, Ethiopia, and the Philippines. Now, it might be that averageness reflects facial quality, so any deviation from the norm could be a defect or a deformity. But humans tend to prefer averageness of individuals in general, and this includes other species like dogs and fish and birds. How much do we like averageness? And what some researchers did was average faces, and then they sent in pictures to a modeling agency. So you can see here the face on the right is the average of the two faces on the left. And what they did is they created 12 of these average faces, and these are not real people. And they sent them into a modeling agency who've got something like 100 applications, and they chose 14 of their applicants. 12 of those 14 were the average faces, the not real faces. So it seems that there's a very strong preference for facial averageness in both males and females. Another characteristic that humans tend to prefer in mates is facial symmetry. And regarding the face and the body in general, there's something we call fluctuating asymmetry. So that means how different the right side is from the left. And you can measure things like eye size, eyebrow height, cheekbone size, shape of the lip. And you can see how different these vary from the right side of the face to the left side of the face. And the more similar, the more symmetrical the face is. This is an indicator of a person's health and potential fitness and reproductive value. How well have they weathered the storms of development, childhood, and adolescence? The better they have done, perhaps higher genetic quality, perhaps reflected in facial symmetry, this fluctuating asymmetry. And there's many positive health and genetic associations with symmetry, and people tend to prefer more attractive, people with more symmetry are seen as more attractive. They generally have more sexual partners, and they generally also have more extraparent copulations. So here's a picture of a symmetrical and an asymmetrical face. If you guess that Denzel Washington is the more symmetrical face, you are correct. So some conclusions. Physical traits that are considered attractive can be thought of as signals of underlying quality. Remember, all of these things that we discussed, proportions, weight, hairstyle, these are all cultural preferences that are acquired during development. Ultimate explanations for mates circle around mate quality and underlying genetic quality that could potentially be passed on to offspring. And don't forget that male and female mate preferences track both information in the environment and their own condition as well, as people try to maximize their reproductive success, or at least are products of individuals who did maximize their reproductive success. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for listening.